I did have some topics from Chinmoy Prabhu, and also Govindanandini. She also wrote in with something. Dandavat, Sananda Surpani from London. Dandavat. Maybe I'll start with Govindanandini. Actually, I didn't quite understand your question, because it seemed like it was a matter of language. You were asking about the word obeisance.
I had this question because I was doing the video with this video, and he said, our position is very good. All we need is obedience. But some ego serves that. And then every time I hear somebody saying Portuguese, oh, you need obedience. I don't know, obedience. Do you use this word, obedience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's different from the word obeisance. Yeah. Welcome, Chintamani. Very happy to have you with us.
Dandavats!
Where are you calling in from?
Sorry we're late. We had a visitor, our neighbor from where we were parked before. We're about 4 hours north of here. I'll give you the view. This is our campsite here in the northern Arizona forest.
Okay, beautiful.
Near Flagstaff. There's Jai Dave.
Dandavats.
Dandavats.
Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki jai. Actually, Vishakha Maharani ki jai.
Okay. So we're discussing this word obeisance. So this is coming from a quote of Srila Gurudev, where he's saying that can you say again what Gurudev said?
Our position is very good. All we need is obeisance. But some ego deserves. And then I think obeisance in the sense of surrender.
Yeah.
But if you put like in Google obeisance in Portuguese, it takes you to a moral Christian thing, like you have to obey.
I mean, we can't get too caught up with language. I mean, we have to try and see more what is Gurudev trying to say, right? So I mean, in I think the word obeisance, there's many different like angles of meaning there, right? You know, and all the things you mentioned, obedience also, that connotation is there. Surrender, submission, respect. You know, all of those angles of meaning are there. I mean, to understand exactly what Gurudev is saying, I think we'd have to see the exact context. But in general, it sounds like he's speaking about, you know, the need to leave aside our false ego and the mood of self-assertion, and to submit ourselves, you know, to offer ourselves in submission at the feet of Guru and Vaishnav. I wouldn't worry too much about the dictionary, you know, meaning of the word, but just we want to try to see what Gurudev is saying. You know, yesterday Giridhari Prabhu was here, and he's been going through a text of one small booklet of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's called Relative Worlds. You've heard of it, I'm sure. It's published in many places, including on some of our websites. But Giridhari is preparing the text for publishing on Krishna Search, our online text base. And he got stuck on it because he had a whole list of words that aren't in the dictionary. like about a dozen words that Saraswati Thakur uses that just aren't in the dictionary. And so he got stuck, and then he was trying to find like possible replacement words or possible other words that Saraswati Thakur could have meant. But when you go through the list, then you can understand what he means. You know, maybe those words aren't in the dictionary, but they should be in the dictionary. Actually, they make perfect sense. So, you know, language is like impersonalistic, rupturous, differentiative, renunciating, you know, words that immaculated, magnitudinal, you know, words like that. Like you can understand what he means, they make perfect sense to us, but they're not in the dictionary. So, you know, the dictionary is not always our friend. But we're trying to, language is just a vehicle to convey meaning. So yeah, we have to try to understand what our gurus are saying. Like Gurudev in the beginning, you know, he was like learning English when he was first speaking with the Western devotees. And so some of the things that he was saying in the beginning, you know, in the early years when he was first starting to give English talks, grammatically speaking, they didn't make sense, or some of the words he would use not the way we would normally use them. Like Chinmoy, he was asking me about one the other day. One thing Gurudev used to say was, "Please give your minorly attention." He would say very often, "Please give your minorly attention." And what he meant is, and that's not a word, minorly, and it doesn't make sense literally speaking. You know, the word, but what Gurudev means is minor means small, right? And so he meant like give your fine attention, please, he's saying, please pay close attention. So yeah, anyway, I think I made that point. But does that answer your query?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I really addressed what you were saying.
Well, just one question. Reverence is the same thing of obeisance?
Yeah, I mean, you could say obeisance is to offer reverence. Yeah, I mean, actually, obeisance, it's not really a word that is used nowadays. I mean, I think a lot of people I think most people don't really know what that word means at all, actually. I mean, we use it a lot in our devotional community, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, people don't, in the modern world, people don't use that word. I don't think they're really very familiar with it either. So yeah, I mean, we don't really use it. Nobody uses it. I've never heard anybody use it outside of a devotional context.
Actually, outside FCS Mass, because when I meet devotees from other missions and I try to say Nandavat or...
No, in ISKCON they use it as well. They say Pamho. Haven't you heard that? Pamho? Pamho is short for please accept my humble obeisance. Pamho.
Yeah.
Well, welcome Karan. Welcome Giridhari Prabhu. Okay. Okay, so Chinmoy Prabhu had a really nice topic. Let me just bring it up here. What is the difference between having faith that the environment is all friendly and being complacent with the environment? And then also, this is a second one here. What is the difference between criticism and telling the truth? I mean, this brings up a lot of different points for discussion. I mean, in regards to the point of being complacent, we have to understand what our duty is, you know. I mean, I understand that that dilemma can come up when we see that something is wrong, and we feel like we have to do something about it, and we feel like it's negligence if we don't. But, you know, we have to determine whether or not it is our duty to do that. You know, what is our specific duty, and what is our capacity in this particular circumstance. You know, we may have a desire to correct the situation, but we don't have the position, the resources, the capacity to be able to affect a positive change. So whether or not we act in a particular situation depends upon our own capacity or duty to make any positive change. One famous example of Srila Saraswati Thakur comes to mind, that occasion when he was in Vrindavan, and there was a very foolish and arrogant Brahmin there who made a comment that, oh, we can bless Raghunath Das Goswami, because Raghunath Das Goswami, there's one place where, it's in Prapana Jivanamrita, there's one prayer where he's praying for the blessings he mentions different persons, including, and two of the persons he mentions are the Brahmins, and then another is the Brajbasis, the residents of Vrindavan. And so this Brahmin living in Vrindavan, he made this arrogant comment, oh, we can bless you, you know, we are Brahmins, I'm a Brahmin, and I'm also a Brajbasi, I'm also a resident of Vrindavan. So we can bless Raghunath Das Goswami. And Srila Saraswati Thakur heard about that comment that he'd made, and presumably it was made in somewhat of a public setting. So that news came to Saraswati Thakur, and he became very upset, and he announced that he would fast, that until any correction came, he would fast, until there was some type of apology for what had been expressed, some retraction, then he would not eat anything, would not take any food. So Saraswati Thakur began fasting, and gradually his whole camp also began fasting. And eventually that man, he was made to understand the offense that he'd made, and he apologized for what he had said. And Saraswati Thakur, he accepted that and he let it go. But then somebody, after this was all over, someone asked Srila Saraswati Thakur, why did you bother with that man? Why did you allow yourself to become disturbed at all? He's just a fool. Why should you care what he says or what he thinks? Dogs will bark, as the saying goes, so who cares? Why did you pay any attention at all? A fool says foolish things. Why should we make anything of it? So anyway, Saraswati Thakur, he responded that if I had been an ordinary Babaji living here, then I simply would have left the area. So I didn't have to be in the proximity of such persons or hear such things. I would have just quietly left to another place. And he said, but I am sitting in the chair of an acharya. Raghunath Das Goswami, who is he? He is our Prayojan Acharya. He has such an important position within our Sampradaya. And I am here holding that lineage, And he also expressed, why am I riding in a motor car in Vrindavan? I'm standing for the dignity of Rup, Sanatan, Raghunath. And so he felt it was his duty to say something. It was his duty to make a stand. He an insult to, an insult to his Guru Varga. He felt it was his responsibility to uphold their dignity and to demand some apology on their behalf. But if he hadn't been in that position of an acharya, he would have just let it go. He wouldn't have made anything of it. So, we always have to make that consideration, whether it is our place to try to make some adjustment. And generally, if we're in the position to be able to do or say something, then we should. It's mentioned in the Mahabharata in the situation with Draupadi, on that occasion when she was being disrobed, and she was in this public assembly, and it was Dushasan, right? He was trying to disrobe her. And they're in this very grand assembly and so many honorable persons are present. And they all sat silently. And so it's mentioned there in Mahabharata that for an ignorant person to do something ignorant, of course, there's some fault there. But if there is a man of wisdom who does not do something, a man of wisdom and power who has a position to stop something wrong that's taking place, and they don't do that, then there's more fault to be ascribed to that person, to those persons. So, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj expresses it in one place, we do have some duty to our environment. It may not be appropriate for us to just be aloof to everything. So it depends on the individual and on the time, place, and circumstance. And if we're unable to do or say anything, then we don't need to think of ourselves as being complacent. We simply have to accept that it is not our place. It is not for us to do or say anything in this circumstance. We are always trying to connect with Krishna's will. We're always trying to connect with the higher will. And we have to recognize, try to understand how that will is flowing. And sometimes Krishna's will is for things to be disturbed or to be broken, or sometimes it goes in that direction. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's mentioned the Kurukshetra battle. That's a part of life, and we cannot always try to enforce perfection, or we cannot always expect perfection or peace to be the predominant element in the environment. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj gives the example of the Kurukshetra battle, the destruction of the Jadu Dynasty. He also mentioned about Krishna's own dynasty, the Jadavas. They all killed each other. Krishna's own family line, they all killed each other in a drunken brawl. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she also commented about the breakdown of the Gaudiya Math. He said it was not appreciable what happened, but at the same time, we see that Krishna's will was behind everything, that Krishna's will was in the background. And so then if we cannot always, and this is a mistake I've made, where you try to force something, you try to fix something that's not supposed to be fixed. So sometimes we have to just allow things to be wrong or difficult or whatever it may be, we have to accept that, and then to take that deeper step and to see what good is to be had in that circumstance. You know, how we can grow. You know, actually our only necessity is to become more Krishna conscious. That is our only necessity, actually. And whatever troubles may come, that still remains our only necessity. And so, you know, I mean, you know, if we talk about the mission, you know, for example, you know, anyone who's been in missionary life for any extended period knows that it's not a bed of roses. It can be very difficult. But what we gain in those difficulties is so many challenges that allow us to grow as practitioners. You know, in Sri Guru and His Grace, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he expresses there, he's speaking about the aftermath of the departure of Sri Guru. And there's one phrase there which is so powerful, where he says, you know, it is such a terrible thing, the departure of our Guru. You know, do we want to live peacefully? He says, you know, such a tragedy is upon our heads, you know. Do we want to live peacefully? You know, rather we should welcome trouble and disturbance and all these things, you know, that is you know, that is more appropriate for the mood, you know, in the absence and separation from Guru, you know. So, you know, we have to see how you know, we can grow in our Krishna consciousness, you know, because of the difficulties and challenges that we may face. You know, I mean, everything in this world is going to come and go, you know, and what we have at the end of the day is our own faith, you know. We will lose everything eventually, you know, but what we will have is our faith. So that is really what is important. That is really what is valuable. Everything we have may be destroyed. You know, we have to be ready for that, you know, that we can lose everything. You know, that friends may be enemies, enemies may be friends. You know, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentions that in Sri Guru and His Grace. Everything can change, you know. I think sometimes of, you know, what difficulties Srila Sridhar Maharaj faced, you know, when Saraswati Thakur left the world, what type of troubles there were in the mission. His best friend in the mission completely left the line of Saraswati Thakur, and not only that, tried to break Srila Sridhar Maharaj's faith. You know. And, you know, and Gurudev, what type of troubles he faced. You know, there were people who tried to kill him because they were envious of him, you know, in his relationship with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And, you know, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he was part of this very grand and glorious mission, but in the end he had to leave that, you know. But and you know how difficult that must have been. But what came as a result of that? You know, as a result of that, he began Sri Chaitanya Sarasamat. You know, as a result of that, our Gurudev, you know, came. We have shelter, the lotus feet of our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj. You know, Prapana Jivanamritam came as a result of that. Prapana Jivanamrita is the number one medicine. The number one medicine. And actually, there's a place where Srila Sridhar Maharaj explains how that book came about and how he specifically wrote it because of the word that he used was helplessness, the helplessness that he felt. He was in this like interim period between, leaving the Gaudiya Math and going to begin something else, or start something else, or just be alone. And that was specifically what inspired him, because to compose, to compile Prapana Jivanamrita. And he said that, I am helpless, but Sharanagati, surrender, that can come to my aid, that can come. And he also expressed that his desire was that the book would help others in the future who may also face a similar situation. He says that also. So what wealth is there? It's in Sermons Volume 3, I think, where he talks about it. In the struggling, feeling what I mean, not struggling is the wrong word, but feeling the pain of separation from his guru, and facing so much turbulence in the mission that he was a part of for so many years, not feeling sure about the future. And in that mood, he came to prepare this wonderful treatise on Sharanagati, showing us that, Sharanagati, it always comes to our aid, And so we have this wonderful book, as a result of that, that moment that Srila Sridhar Maharaj faced, as a result of that, we have Prapana Jivanamrita, which is an extraordinary scripture, most beautiful scripture. And our beautiful mission and our beautiful Gurudev, that all came because of that difficulty. So, we don't know which way things are going. We don't know why things happen as they do, but there is always there is always some positive reason for whatever takes place. And we may not always be able to see that, but we have to have faith in that. We must have faith that the Lord's goodness is behind. If only, and if nothing else, the opportunity for self-correction, for demolition of our false ego, that is always there, that is always there. And those moments of, helplessness, they are very conducive to Sharanagati. And that really is, that really is the essence of everything else. And sometimes we may feel frustrated in our desire to save the world, but really the real necessity is for us to save ourselves. And when we're unable to save the world, we can we can try to save ourselves. So yeah, we have to try and understand, which way the current's moving, and we want to align ourselves with that and understand. Sometimes it's proper to act, and sometimes it is better not to act. And we have to try to understand our own place and our own duty and capacity, and then act accordingly, or not act accordingly. Should I move on to the next point about truth and criticism, or do you want to Do you want to make any comment, Chinmoy Prabhu?
Well, as you were saying, because the difficulty I find is knowing something is wrong, but realizing I don't have the capacity to change it, or it's not my duty, but still it is there. And how am I to adapt to that? How am I to, how are you going to say, just, I guess, correct myself?
Yeah, well, we have to refocus, I think. We have to refocus. And you know, that, and how to do that, it will be different in every situation. You know, it may mean that if there's something that's really bothering us, then the best thing may be to, if it's too disturbing, then to withdraw to some extent, maybe the best thing that we can do. On the other hand, it may be to simply to remain in that situation and to try to redirect our focus and try to see how we can, you know, make the best of a difficult situation. You know, there's that wonderful quote of Srila Sridhar Maharaj: the highest harmony can tolerate any type of opposition, right? What is that? And he also mentions toleration there. But I mean, that was something that we saw in Gurudev. He had this incredible harmonizing capacity. And it's something that's become even more evident since Gurudev left, because we see there are so many different factors, so many different elements that he was kind of juggling, we could say. And in his absence, you know, it's not quite all holding together. It's not holding together as it was when he was able to harmonize and accommodate so many different entities and different mentalities. But in his absence, we see that's not able to continue, because that harmonizing capacity he had, it's not present in the way that it was. So, and Govindji, in the higher type of harmony, opposition even enhances. Very nice. Enhances the beauty of the harmony and helps it. Yes, Jai. Very nice. So, I mean, if we have that type of capacity, then we will be able to overcome and compensate also. We can help to compensate what anomaly is there, what anomaly, or what I think that word is okay. You know, we can, I mean, according to the degree of our own spiritual potency, we will be able to you know, naturally affect positive change, you know. So, I mean, you know, somebody like our Gurudev, you know, our divine guardian, he had that type of divine presence. And he commanded that type of submission as well. So, you know, things would naturally be adjusted in his presence. And he had the capacity to draw out, you know, the higher nature of everyone. You know, that was also part of Gurudev's magic, that he could inspire, you know, the goodness, the beauty, the higher aspect of everyone. And so just by his presence and by the way in which he reciprocated with persons, things would naturally be harmonized and adjusted. And and also whatever negativity may have been present in a particular environment, it would have been compensated for because of his bright presence. You know, his brightness made it easier for persons to tolerate whatever negativity may have been coming from another sphere, right? So of course, you know, we're not Gurudev at all, but we can draw some inspiration from that, you know. And I mean, this is the ideal. This is the ideal, that we can overcome what negativity is present. We can compensate for what negativity is present. We can ourselves try to become a beacon of light for others. You know, if there's a particular difficulty in a particular environment, then, you know, we can, you know, we may be able to become a source of positivity in that environment, and become a source of light and nourishment for others, and in such a way that eclipses that difficulty or that negativity. You know, ideally, that is how, you know, through the principles of humility, tolerance, and respect, you know, we adjust with the situation. We focus on the positive, on a progressive approach to the situation. We try to focus on the positive aspect. And sometimes that means, you know, just going one step at a time. And I mean, in my own experience, you know, if I think too much about a particular situation, like the big picture, then it can be very discouraging. You know, I can feel very hopeless. But if I just focus on, like, what is my particular job here? What is my particular service here? And just like focus on that. Let me focus, like I cannot affect a mass change in this situation or with these persons, because I don't have the position to do that, or I don't have the capacity or whatever. But in my little sphere, I can do the best that I can. And you know, that is a way that I can make some, you know, positive you know, contribution to what is a conflicted situation. There's this really really nice expression in it's a book of Charles Dickens. I don't remember which book it was. I think the character is called Esther. But there's this like concept of that Charles Dickens, he's like spoofing this whole movement among upper class ladies at the time, where they would get really excited, like as a fashion, they would get really excited about donating, like raising money for poor children in Africa or Asia. But meanwhile, on their own doorstep, there was so much poverty and neglect. And so they were like ignoring the social deficiencies in their own neighborhood, and they were getting all excited about raising funds for you know, persons thousands of miles away, and really as a fashion, you know, because it sounds very exotic, you know, I'm supporting the school in Africa or whatever. But there are like kids on the street in front of them who don't have enough food to eat, you know? So Charles Dickens, he calls this telescopic philanthropy. You know, they're projecting all this philanthropy very far away. And so there's this one, she's one of the main characters, Esther, and this is really nice section where she talks about this, our circle of duty that we have in our immediate vicinity. We have our own particular circle of duty. And if we can do that very perfectly, if we can do that very well, then naturally, that will, that circle will begin to grow. And our capacity to be able to affect, to spread goodness, to affect positive change, it will naturally grow in a harmonious way, So, we cannot make everything perfect, but we all have our own little sphere, whether it's simply, our raising our children well, or, treating our spouse well, or, or whatever it may be, on Sundays, doing the puja, or whatever it is, or Wednesdays we do this, or we're kind to this devotee, or this devotee called me asking for help, or this devotee sent me a letter asking for help, or I have this service that I'm doing. We all have some particular, set of services that we're trying to do. I don't want to use the word service because that boxes it in too much. But we all have the particular bundle of things that we're trying to do as an offering to Guru and Gauranga. And so if we can focus on that, just focus on that, that is something very optimistic. That is something very, very positive, to focus in on what is within our sphere of influence, what is within our sphere of, our own capacity, what is present, what's on the plate before us, and not to focus in, not to, or rather, zoom out too far and see too much of the negativity, or see the bigger picture of things that are beyond our reach to change. But to just focus in on what we can do, And the magic of that is that if we can do that properly, then if it is Krishna's will, of course, then our sphere of influence, it will naturally expand, and we will find we're able to do more. And we may be put in the position to affect a greater degree of positive change. But we have to be prepared that it is simply not meant to be also, Sometimes things are meant to be broken. There's some other purpose in the background that we can't see, But ultimately, I think that remembrance that our real need is to become more Krishna conscious, not for things to be perfect, not for things to be right or wrong. We do have to always come back to that we need to be Krishna conscious. Whatever may be happening in the environment, the whole world may be falling apart. That remains the greatest necessity for us, to increase our own Krishna consciousness, to develop our own Krishna consciousness at every step. What do you think? Does that address what you're saying?
Yes, Devi, perfect.
Okay. So then the next point here was, what is the difference between criticism and telling the truth? Well, there's two kinds of truth. There's raw truth, and then there's merciful truth. So, we are more interested in truth that is imbued with mercy, with beauty, an optimistic truth, a hopeful truth. Because that's the thing, that we may see something very clearly for what it is in a particular moment, but that's just a snapshot in time. So higher truth, a higher level of truth, is calculating all the possibilities that are surrounding something. Like if a child, let's say a child steals something, right? And then somebody accuses the child, oh, I know that you stole that. And then a loving adult comes on the scene and knows what happened, but also believes in the basic goodness of that child and their capacity to improve. So they may say, no, I don't believe that you did that. You would never do anything like that. I believe in your honesty and in your goodness. You would never do anything like that, would you? So the power of that belief, it may change that child's and make them feel, oh, I never want to do that ever again. I want to be a better person. Somebody believes in me. They believe in my goodness. I want to be like that, And that was part of Gurudev's magic. Like he would say, my fault is that I believe in everyone. So there's a great power in that, in believing, in overlooking like the gritty reality of a particular situation, and seeing the higher potential, the capacity for change. I mean, this is a broad topic. I mean, there's lots of points to discuss here. There's an article, I'm sure you've seen it, by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vaishnava Ninda, it is called, where he extensively discusses this topic of criticism. And he lists, first he discusses different types of criticism, which are not acceptable. And then, which is pretty much everything, to criticize something that a Vaishnava did previously, before they came to spiritual practice, what they did in their previous life, to criticize that before they came to surrender, to criticize any faults that they currently have in their nature, in their appearance, in their habits, to criticize faults that they're in the process of becoming free of. So he discusses that, and then at the end of the article, he mentions cases in which it is acceptable to discuss the faults of a devotee, to make some criticism, and so he mentions there in a mood of instruction. Like if you're trying, like sometimes in the scriptures, or you'll see like in fables, there's a story told, oh, such and such a person did this and did that, and this is what happened to them, like a cautionary tale. So, sometimes our gurus, they may give some example, oh, this Vaishnava did this, and this is what happened to them, or they may point out this fault in someone for our own benefit, so we can correct ourselves. And for ourselves, just in our, I see devotees, they they get kind of paranoid sometimes, especially newer devotees, because they hear so much about Vaishnava Aparad, you know, it's the devil, you know, don't commit Vaishnava Aparad, you're going to hell, you know. So I see, especially new devotees, they have this fear about making offense, and so they may sometimes, like, they may confide something in me, and then they get really, really like afraid that they said that, and say, oh no, I take it back, and I didn't mean that, you know. But what I try to explain is that there's nothing wrong with making an honest observation of what's going on, because we need to, you know, in order for us to navigate our own path in Krishna consciousness, you know, how we're going to serve, who we're going to serve under, who we're going to associate with, who will be our friends, who's good association, who's bad association. In order to determine all of these things, then it's necessary for us to have some clear assessments of the nature of various Vaishnavas. We have to assess who's good to the best of our ability. Of course, we're not able of making a perfect assessment, but to the best of our ability, we will try to determine, you know, who is good association, who is not, etc., etc. In order to do that, we have to make some honest assessment. And also we, you know, if there's a particular circumstance, we'll try to understand what is the right way, what is the wrong way, to recognize who's acting in line with our gurus, who's not acting in line with our gurus. But for the most part, these will be observations that we keep to ourselves for our own understanding. And we may discuss with very few, very confidential devotees, you know, as a not, and not in the point is when there's a mood of animosity, when there's a mood of envy, when there's a mood of fault finding, of criticism, you know, and as opposed to instructional for, you know, for the purpose of having clarity for our own education and growth in Krishna consciousness. So, you know, we should have some clarity. And I mean, like we saw with Gurudev, Chinmoy Prabhu knows, like Gurudev could be very sharp in his assessment. You know, Gurudev could say very heavy things, you know, about the devotees. But he wasn't doing that in a mood of ill will towards anyone. You know? And you know, we also have to be, you know, for those who've heard some of the things Gurudev said, we also have to be intelligent and not spread those things. You know, we have to understand, you know, the love that Gurudev had for those Vaishnavas at the same time. You know, we cannot isolate, you know, what he said from the feeling and the love in his heart, you know. But that's another topic maybe. But yeah, just to say, you know, some of the things Gurudev said were so sharp, you know, were so cutting, you know, but it wasn't in a mood of animosity or envy or just, you know, criticism for the sake of criticism. It was out of, he expressed those things out of his desire to instruct others, or his frustration, because like often I feel, and that's something I'm still learning actually in retrospect, you know, some of those things he said were about devotees who he really cared about, and he was frustrated because they weren't as much as he wanted, you know, like he wanted more from them and he was frustrated. So it was really an expression of care and love and intimacy that he felt. So, you know, it wasn't coming just, you know, he never would speak, he would never express, you know, these types of criticisms from a you know, from a what I just said, you know, animosity or envy like that. You know, there was always goodness behind that, you know. So I mean, that's something I really appreciate, you know. Gurudev was honest, you know, he was very observant. Srila Saraswati Thakur, he wasn't whitewashing over everything, Saraswati Thakur, he expressed in one place, I'm a proofreader, and he was speaking about his ability to observe others, to understand others. He said, I'm a proofreader. I understand what's going on with everyone. I can read everybody. And Gurudev was really like that too. He was so sharp and so keen in his observation of others. So, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about the spirit in which it is done. And then in terms of how we will, what we will say to others, we have to understand what's appropriate, when it's appropriate, to who it is appropriate, just to speak facts for the sake of speaking facts, that's never useful, that's never helpful. Just to say, oh, I know this is what's happening, or I know what this person's like, just because it's the truth, that's not necessarily helpful. So it should always, whatever we may state as a fact or truth, there should be some progressive purpose behind it. Why are we saying it? So sometimes we'll say things like that mixed with our own ego, our desire to show that we know something or we understand something, or to establish our own superiority. Our motives can be mixed. So we have to be careful that we're not saying these things out of a desire to boost our own prestige. I have a private question here. Wasn't there a phrase that said something like, the only way to judge a person is by their level of commitment? I'm not familiar with that, but that reminds me of Srila Sridhar Maharaj's point that we should judge someone by their ideal, by the ideal that they hold. So even if someone is not practicing up to a particular standard, if they hold the ideal very bright in their heart, then we will judge them on the basis of that, not how they're performing or practicing at present. Well, I'm happy we could discuss these things. Very essential matters. What are your thoughts, Chinmay Prabhu?
Very nice, Didi. Actually, this has helped me very much.
Oh, we're glad.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vishakha Didi, here too.
Ramananda Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you,
Dhanavad. And also we have Seamus and Vijay have joined us from Ireland. Dhanavad. Ananga Krishna Prabhu has joined us from Tijuana. Anadi Krishna Prabhu from Veracruz. And then there's a couple others. I'm an anonymous phone, and Rohit is here also. So happy to be here with all of you. Does anyone want to add anything else? Okay, so Rohit is a friend of Chintamani's from West Bengal. Okay, welcome Rohit. So we have 2 tuning in from Bengal today. Very nice. Okay, well, would anyone like to add anything there?
I want to ask something if you have.
Yeah, yes, of course.
Param Guru Mai say bird of feather flock together. So could you explain a little bit that, clarify? I wonder that. See, I also very kind of picky, but I don't like-minded.
Birds of a feather flock together. there, I recall a place in Golden Volcano where he speaks about that, and what was he saying? I think he was saying something like how love likes love. Let me see if I can find it. But what is the context of your question, Ramananda Prabhu? Are you thinking of something in particular there?
Yeah, like Srila Gurumai, Param Gurumai said, Bhaktya Sangatya, Bhaktya. So, because there are so many variations even within the devotee communities. So, it's sometimes for me very hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can resonate with that. You know, there's a place where Gurudev, I think it's published in Revealed Truth, and it was really kind of revolutionary for me when I read that, where Gurudev, he's speaking about our association, and I think in particular he speaks about taking shelter of senior Vaishnavas, and so he says that we should consider whether this Vaishnava cares for me, you know, in a specific way, you know, because, you know, we or at least myself, you know, I tend to have this idea that we're meant to be, you know, best friends with everybody, but you know, it's not meant to be like that. We all do have different natures. And so we do have to consider, you know, who can give us the support that we need in Krishna consciousness, who cares for us, who has a similar mood. You know, there are so many different approaches and moods in Krishna consciousness. There are also different levels of understanding. There's a gradation in that sense. So we do have to consider, you know, it's not that we will just indiscriminately, you know, try to be best friends with everyone. Of course, we will be friendly and respectful with everyone, but who we will keep closer to our heart and have a more intimate level of exchange, we have to be more discerning about that, in order to, you know, ensure, you know, the maximum degree of, you know, growth to our faith. So we do have to be discerning about that. You know, who, you know, we want some similarity in mood, and some mood of real care, you know, reciprocal care. You know, who, you know, like we may, you know, we're always encouraged to take shelter of the senior Vaishnavas, but we have to see, like, who has some, you know, if we're going to seek advice from a senior Vaishnav, we have to consider, do they take some personal interest in my situation? If they're really going to advise me in the best way, then they need to really care about me specifically. You know, just having like a general, you know, response may not be helpful for me, may not be what I really need. So we want to search for that as well. And, you know, and that's something natural and normal. You know, I mean, of course, the other extreme of that is having, you know, like cliques, you know, like, you know, group mentality, or this is my group, you know, I'm not part of that group, you know. No, that's not healthy either. So I mean, I think some balance. No, Gurudev was so loving, and he, like, Gurudev cared about the devotees having, like, I know of a few occasions when he inquired about, like, a devotee's friends, like Subhasini Didi, she can testify to that. He mentioned how you were good friends with somebody, right? What was that incident?
Well, he would remember actually when we visited the mart or something, he would remember who we were together with, and then he would maybe 15 years later, and he would actually tell. I mean, one time I was in London and he said, oh, this person visited me like yesterday or something, but I mean that I wouldn't have seen him for like 15 years, but he would remember at that time we were there, and then he would actually give news about that person, like yeah. And yeah, a couple of occasions I remember like that actually. And I would and that person I have never seen afterwards, after that first time, but he would know that I was there at that time with him, and he would tell something about him like that. So yeah, so that was very remarkable for me, how he remembered that.
Yeah, that's amazing. He remembered 15 years before when you were friendly with someone. He just observed that.
Yeah, not even friendly. We were together, probably in Navadvip one time. We were together at the same time. He also visited, he was there. And then, like maybe, I'm just saying about 15 years. I don't know exactly, but a long time, like maybe 10 years. I don't know. It's just, later he would, and then he said, and I can't even remember, oh, you know him. He was there with, like that. And so he remembered that time, and that was very amazing. 2 occasions he told like, that's remarkable. Yeah.
Yes. There was also one time with Shudha Prabhu. There was some type of conflict that came up, and Gurudev was concerned about him. And so on one occasion he asked Shudha, who are your friends? Like he wanted to, maybe Chinmoy was there. He asked him that, who are your friends? He was concerned, like he had someone on his side. He had some good friends around him. So, that was something that Gurudev, looked out for, that the devotees had their own like intimate circle. They had good friends around them. So yeah, that's something natural and healthy. Yeah. Does that address your point, Ramananda Prabhu?
Yes, Vishakha Didi, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember some occasions of Gurudev, different interaction with the Shruta Shira Prabhu, even Goswami Maharaj, different devotees. Yeah. Like a magician. He was amazing actually. You are intelligent, you can see more. See, I can't see. I was lucky able to serve him, but I had some opportunity. Gurudev was so merciful. He said, can you cook for me? I said, I will try. Now the Gurudev asked me.
He asked you to cook for him, huh?
Yeah. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Gurudev was amazing, so merciful. See, so sometimes that's what makes me sad and mad, because Gurudev, when I see Gurudev suffering, that makes me kind of people don't take seriously. But Gurudev, I saw him suffer. He was heavy in Navadvip in Calcutta. I almost died once or twice there. It was heavy, yeah. Because I used to stay with him with veranda with Rishabdi Prabhu in the Damdam Park. Very heavy. So many mosquitoes. Gurudev, for our sake, Gurudev was there. He didn't have to because of some seva and other things. Yeah. But Gurudev was always so loving. Yeah. Yeah. He came to our house. He came to Sokhel, San Jose. There were 300 people. Now it's like a ghost house. And Gurudev was here and Goswami Maharaj was there, and Gurudev was so loving. He said, oh, that temple went away. He didn't point finger or anything. Nicely he explained everybody and so affectionate. Gurudev has a big heart, amazing, so much, yeah, so much love, so much compassion Gurudev had. Yeah. I was listening to Doot Maharaj. I listened to you. Thank you so much. You have eyes. See, I have, but I can't. I forget. I don't see it. There's so much commotion here. Just.
Jai Rama.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I muted. Yeah, you're muted. Right. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that, Ramananda Prabhu. It was beautiful to hear. Our gratitude to our host, Chinmoy Prabhu, in Santa Cruz, and to all the beautiful Vaishnavas who have joined us. And I'll look forward to meeting with you again next week. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Vaishnava ki Jai. Jai. Gaur Premanande. Okay.
Yeah.
Go.